What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Optimize You. We are the podcast that helps you transform your health, fitness, nutrition, mindset, identity, and create that lasting change in your life. And today, I have a podcast that is a little bit tough for me to talk about. This is something that maybe 4 or 5 people know about. I've told a few other people here recently about this because of the change and the impact I think that it has had in my life that I didn't fully realize. And so today I'm going to tell you about something, and it's all around environment. It's all around environment and just how our environment impacts really our ability to change anything, to overcome anything, our habits, all of these things. It really conditions ourselves. And I didn't realize this as much. Basically, I'll get right into this. So, about 2 years ago, I had a situation happen at my house where I found a hidden camera. And you might be thinking that sounds like a horror film, and it felt like I was in a horror film when this happened. And like I said, I haven't told many people about this. I did not feel it brings back not the best memories because it did impact my life basically I was paranoid for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, just not in a good place as one would think, right? Like I looked, and the crazy thing about this is that only less than 24 hours later. So it was my stack of books near my bed. It was in the middle of it, facing my bed. And so extremely just cringeworthy as far as like stuff that you would literally see in a horror film. Somebody had a camera facing towards my bed, and it scared the shit out of me. I ended up breaking the camera, and then I did a ton of research trying to figure out what had happened, who put this in my room, right? And really for me, a lot of signs pointed back to my roommates. And really fast forwarding a little bit, I did a lot of research on this. I looked into the thing. I dug really deep into this thing. I talked to our Wi-Fi company to try to figure out, because this thing had like Wi-Fi on it. Basically I kind of fucked up, and I never was able to figure out exactly what happened, and I didn't have proof. And so I chose to just let it go. I didn't have proof of who did it. I chose to just let it go. And I also wasn't in a position to really be able to move at the time. And really, sorry, this is just like really weird. And it's difficult for me to talk about. But after a certain point, I felt like I was in a good place with it, and it didn't affect me. And mind you, it had been 2 years, right? And I finally was moving out of this place. And like the last 2 weeks, I felt a little bit different. I know that I've talked about on here, I've talked about in my Facebook group, how there was portions of time, like I would have binge eating come back in, and different bad habits. And like, no matter what I did, I could make progress from for a while, but I'd fall back into them. And that had kind of creeped its head back in. And then all of a sudden, the last 2 weeks of living in this place, when it was finally, my stuff was moved out, and it was kind of almost like a wrap, right? It was like, okay, I'm almost out of here. Then I started to feel almost like a sense of like calm, and I started to actually be able to get away from some of these bad habits. And now I've been at my parents' place for the last three weeks, and I literally feel like a different person. I haven't even thought about these bad habits that I was doing before, these things that were affecting me and affecting my confidence, affecting how I felt about myself. And it made me realize, when I took a step back and I was talking to a close friend about this, that just how much the environment impacted me, and just how much extra stress that I was under that I didn't realize. And basically just how I didn't even feel safe in my own home, but I didn't realize that, right? It was almost like underlying, right? Because when you deal with something for long enough, then it becomes the normal. And so I think not being safe in my own place became the normal for me, but I masked it. I put a mask on and I tried to push forward. And now that I'm out, I feel good. Like now I feel like a new person. And so like the moral of this is, and this is the craziest thing that ever happened to me, first off, but the moral of this whole thing is that sometimes that change in environment, even for like a short-term period, can really get you that energy you need to change. And then sometimes it's like, if I'm in an environment where I have maybe abuse or have had something crazy happen to me in that place, or, there's a lot of negativity in that place, then it's going to affect you. I've been talking more and more about the support system and how these negative influences in your life, or people who don't really build you up, how much they actually do affect you. Even if you don't realize it, you start to take in their thoughts. You start to, almost adopt their beliefs. Like if you hang around people long enough. And I basically hung out in a house for 2 years that I didn't feel safe in. And it did affect me. And I didn't realize how much it actually affected me until I was out of that. And so this is just to say, for any of you out there, if you're in an environment where you don't feel safe, or where there's been a lot of trauma or things that have happened to you, and I'm not, trauma is trauma, right? There's the lowercase t, the uppercase T, they talk about, there's a lot of different things that could happen to you. And it really comes down to what we draw conclusions on. And so if you are in a place that you don't feel safe in, or if you are in a place where you've had a lot of stress in that place, or a lot of things that have happened to you, or even one thing that's happened to you that's really impacted your life in a heavy way, you might not even realize how much it actually has affected you in the long-term stress it could have on you until you get out of there. And that might not be in the cards for all of you, like it wasn't for me for a while there, even though I did think about leaving. And, I'm grateful that I'm out. And I'm also grateful that I was able to just kind of realize how much of it has an effect. Because we do talk about this a good amount on the podcast, like environment and people and how big they play in. And this is just something that I realized in my life that hopefully can help you all out there realize just how much the people and the environment you're in will dictate your ability to make changes to any habits, to transform your life, to achieve any of the goals you're after. It's all going to play a part. And I think it plays a lot bigger part than you realize. And so, that's what I'll say on that. That's a little bit tough for me to, some people are going to be hearing this, or a lot of people are going to be hearing this for the first time. I'll go into a different topic here to end the podcast. And if this podcast helps you at all, please make sure you share it with somebody, like, subscribe. We really do appreciate it. It helps us grow. And that's what we're after here. We want to be able to help more people, impact more people, and just provide more value that helps people change and transform their lives and transform their health, their mindset, life, everything, nutrition, whatever we can do. And so this is kind of my journey in trying to help you all transform with me and become the best version of yourselves. And so this last weekend, I drove for 15 to 16 hours. Like, it was a long drive. I was going out to an event, Arte Syndicate, which Ed Milet and Andy Frisella, they put on this like mentorship entrepreneur group. And this was just like a regional event. It wasn't really associated with the group. It's just more or less people from the group came. This Josh Kosnick, who's an amazing person, had this awesome event at his place where he had tons of speakers. He had, food, ability to network and meet some new people. And so it was awesome. And I had a lot of self-reflection time on those 15 to 16 hours that I was driving, and really have realized some things. I got to go deep, which I like to do when I'm driving. I like to go deep if I can. Now I actually enjoy driving. What I was able to figure out about myself is that acceptance has been a huge thing in my life. And I kind of dug into a lot of the triggering events in my life. And all of them kind of came down to, I didn't feel accepted. I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like this person liked me. Right. And that was a huge thing. So I kept going deeper. Right. I kept going deeper. And it was like, oh, like there's my family, right? Like I love my family to death. They've done amazing things for me, instilled tons of traits in me and my brother that I'm so, so grateful to them, forever grateful. And But like my mom was like a helicopter mom, right? Like didn't really allow me to do anything, kind of was always like really close and just like watching me closely, trying to make sure, which, obviously I still ended up doing stuff. I just snuck it, right? I just snuck the things. But, we get in trouble for a lot of different things, right? We get in trouble for the different things that we did in different ways. And so that combined with, that kind of draws the conclusions of maybe that you're not good enough as you are. It's like, oh, I constantly get in trouble. I can't do what I want to do. And then in school, the same thing, right? Like you get in trouble for doing certain things. It's like, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you have to follow the rules. Oh, if you don't do good on this type of test, this is the way, this is what proves that you are good enough to go to the next grade, right? It's like, we kind of are told and kind of need to follow the rules to move in life, right? They kind of mold robots, almost robotic people who just follow the rules. And that, I think, leads people to believe that they're not enough, right? And that's kind of been a huge thing for me, but I also just didn't feel accepted. And I felt like I drew conclusions from different things that in my life, different things that I viewed as rejection. I had a thing like when I was really young where I was too scared to ask this girl out. But so I had friends ask her out for me, and she didn't recognize who I was, which I think she just didn't recognize my name because I was called Wojo by everybody. And I drew that as a rejection, right? And so I didn't really put myself out there. I drew that and drew the conclusion in my mind that I got rejected. And I was like, I don't like that feeling. I don't like that feeling of being rejected. And so like, what can I do to not have that happen again? Oh, well, I'm not going to put myself in the situation to have to do it. And so you draw conclusions from these things in your life that don't even mean what you think they mean, right? Maybe if I just went up and was like, hey, like, yeah, I'm Alex, right? Oh, she's like, oh yeah, we're in the same class, whatever. But I drew that conclusion. I told myself this story that I wasn't good enough and that I wasn't accepted. And that was why I did a lot of the things I did. I did a lot of the things in my life, went towards alcohol, went towards drugs, went towards things that I'm not proud of, that I would never change for the world because it's led me to where I am today. It's led me to what I do today. But I did those things to fit in with the group, to fit in with every group I could have. It was like, how can I be friends with everybody? How can I be accepted by everybody? And so now I understand that acceptance is a huge thing in my life. So I need to just learn to accept myself and like go into situations where I'm a little bit like, ooh, I don't know anybody here. Like I want to make sure everybody likes me. And it's like, okay, take a breath, take a step back. I accept myself. I love myself. It doesn't matter if anybody else does. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be my authentic self. And whatever anybody thinks of me is fine. Because in the end of the day, I accept myself and I know that I'm good enough. And I'm constantly working on that. And so once we know what we need and what triggers ourselves, if we continue to go deeper and ask why and get down to the root and get down to some things from our childhood potentially, or just any time in our life, these events that allowed us to feel this way or that we drew conclusions on or tell ourselves stories about, then we can start to be aware and rip apart those stories a little bit, create new beliefs, and just create what we need personally, what we needed back then. I just needed somebody to be like, you know what? I accept you. You're enough, right? I don't think that people tell us that when we're younger. Don't tell us that we're enough, that we're worthy, that we can do whatever we want to do. And so we try to morph ourselves into this person that's like a chameleon with different groups. Oh, what does this group need for me to like them, or for them to like me? Like, oh, what did like these two people, who should I be here so that they like me, right? When we're good enough as ourselves. We don't need to be accepted by anybody else other than ourselves. We are the only people who we have to live 24/7, 365 with. So with that, this is a little deep one today. A little deep one. I went deep. Hopefully this helps you in some way, shape, or form. If this was helpful, like I said, please make sure to share this, like, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch or listen to this week. And God, hope you have a good rest of the day. And I'll be talking to you soon.